Welcome back to Go Produce My Crew. My name is Big Lou, and this is the podcast and YouTube channel that explores how music industry professionals turn their passions into profit. We are on a massive mission to bring clarity to the music industry, and our goal is to help 1 million music industry professionals live off of their passion. I'm laying down the foundation that I need in order to thrive in the music industry, and I want to help you do the same. This episode is brought to you by thecharts.com. If you're a producer or beat maker looking to build your beat commerce business in less time, thecharts.com can help. With an easy-to-use, mobile-friendly interface and built-in marketing tools, thecharts.com will help you grow your brand, build your fan base, and scale your income. Sign up for free and start selling your beats and instrumentals today on thecharts.com. Today's theme is, how do you capture the best version of a story through photography and videography? Let's go. We've got award-winning filmmaker and photographer Karen Summers, specializing in story-driven branded content and documentaries. Working out of her Los Angeles and New York-based production locations, Karen has traveled the globe producing powerful content for major studios, agencies, and companies. Well-versed in working across various platforms, including theatrical, broadcast, and digital, some of Karen's clients include the Walt Disney Company, NBC Universal, ABC, PBS, Amazon, and the list goes on. Go produce. This is Karen Summers.
I feel like I'm playing a really good video game right now.
This is the new world that we're living in. You know, everything's super interactive. We got to have some fun with it.
I love that. I love that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you, Karen, so much for being here. So let's go ahead and make the most of this and go produce, shall we?
Yes, let's.
All right. The first segment that we like to start off with is called The Basics. You don't seem to be a dancer.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize that it was a dancing element. Sorry.
We'll just pick up on that later on. We've got the opportunity to do better.
No, I'm so focused on getting my audio right for y'all that I'm much more, I'm a production person. I'm going to be looking at the widgets of production, not at the performance. I'm just telling you that right now.
It's habitual. I like it.
I'm going to give you a second chance to dance. Okay, here we go.
Oh, she's getting into it. Beautiful, beautiful. I love the energy, Karen. This is The Basics. We're going to start off with my favorite question. What is your first musical memory?
Oh my gosh. Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins. What about Mary Poppins? Mm-hmm. Just the movie itself? Is there a specific scene?
No, the movie itself. I was 4 years old and I went down to one of the theaters actually in London, Ontario. We had just moved there when I was 3 and we went to my very first movie and it was Mary Poppins. I mean, who doesn't like a spoonful of sugar or supercalifragilistic? I was just invigorated walking out of there. I think I skipped out, in my little sandals and little sundress. It was phenomenal.
It's very cool to hear that because Mary Poppins was very much a part of my youth even. So that tells you that the story itself is significant. And across generations, that spoonful of sugar really does help the medicine go down. Every time I took that Robitussin, oh my goodness.
Oh, that was actually a really special moment for me. And it really I didn't realize how much of an impact it would have in my life. And years later, when I worked for the Walt Disney Company, I was actually in a copy room copying a document. And there was this box of, I didn't know what, that sat there. And week after week, that box sat there, which is unusual for a production house. Finally, I cracked it open just out of curiosity. And it was all these original compositions from all of these Disney musicals that somebody had left there, forgotten that it was there. And as I was going through it, it was the original handwritten composition from Supercalifragilistic. I was so startled. I took the box back to my office and turned it in ultimately to archives, a very nice gentleman in the archives office. And he said, "What can we do to thank you for bringing these in? We've been looking for these for a long time." And I said, "Do you think the Sherman Brothers might send me a little note?" And he goes, "No problem." And within weeks, the Sherman Brothers had sent me a copy of that handwritten score with a little note, a personalized note, just thanking me so much for returning it.
What a find.
Isn't that goofy?
That's wild. Yeah.
Use the pun.
Full circle. Superfragilistic. I can't even say it right now.
Superfragilistic. Yeah. Superfragilistic Espialidocious. Jesus.
Espialidocious.
Yeah.
Used to sing that so much. There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. I like it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. With all of your time in the entertainment industry, you've got lots of experience to talk on, but I'm curious to know, what is the first lesson that you learned within the industry?
Oh my gosh. Remember your lines. Try to do your blocking correctly, and don't look in the lens. I started as a performer, so that's really where things began for me. I was singing for my supper back in the day, and I graduated from York University's wonderful performance program, and that's where it began for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So did it get more intense once you finished the program or transitioning into the program?
The whole thing, I think, for being an actor, anyways, I'm not an actor at all now. I haven't been for many, many years, but I think for young actors, it starts the moment you start giving public performances, really. And there's such a high degree of competition, no matter what you're auditioning for, no matter what you're trying to do, what you're trying to get into, whether it's school or just auditions in general. I think the pressure is consistent, and I find that across the board, anyways, with the world of production and the world of entertainment. And I personally thrive on that kind of pressure. I find it exciting, and I can't imagine living life without it, honestly.
I'm beginning to learn a little bit more about that myself. I transitioned into this world a little bit later on in my life, but it does have a way to just it almost it engulfs you in a way, and unless you're fully content just being in the deep end and just trying to navigate out there, then this really isn't for you, because it's far from stable. I mean, not a lot of stable
that
today,
is
but
that is definitely one of the things that I think everybody tries to impress upon you, how unstable things can be. And that never quits, because as you work your way up the food chain, the air becomes just a little bit thinner with each step. You've got more and more competition, and there aren't as many jobs higher up. When you're above the line, as it were, which is a reference to call sheets. Once you're above the line, those jobs are farther and fewer between as well. So it just depends on how ambitious you are, and in terms of finding your tribe, that's a really important thing, I think, within the entertainment business, the film business. And back in the day when I was living in London, Ontario, my family's very colorful. They're loud and proud immigrants of all stripes. And I loved living in London, but it felt too insular for me at the time. And this is going back more than a few years. I grew up in the 60s and 70s in London, Ontario.
awesome.
And I just couldn't wait to get out. And now when I go back, I just look around and go, this is the most beautiful city. Why would anybody want to leave?
It's cool because a lot of the things, or a lot of the stories that you're talking about, come full circle. Do you visit London still? Just briefly?
Oh yeah. My parents are there. I've got many relatives there. So, and the majority of my family are in Canada still, whether that's Vancouver, Toronto, London. And I'm working on a couple of projects actually that are based on family stories that originated in London, Ontario. So
cool.
that's been super fun, actually.
Yeah. And since you have family and some people still here in Canada that you're working with on projects, would you consider them to be still part of your tribe? I'm wondering, because
Oh yeah.
you want to find a tribe that stays with you throughout, the most amount of your career, because you can grow with them and you can develop together. I'm curious to know, how did you really find that tribe, and how were you able to maintain them for this period of time?
My friends go back a long, long way, and I am very lucky in that I have very good friends. Most of my friendships go back 30, 40 years, believe it or not. I'm 58 years old at this point, so I've had plenty of time to curate friendships, and it really is critical as you go to hang on to the friends that really sort of are loyal and funny and maybe don't take you too seriously, because this whole business, sometimes artists that are coming up in it, we sometimes take ourselves a little too seriously, because it's kind of a serious business, even though at the end of the day we're kind of playing. Once you start getting paid, and once you start getting clients that really need results, sometimes the pressure can be a little too much, and or not too much. It just, the pressure is what it is. And so having friends that understand that pressure and can help you, laugh it off and have some fun in life is incredibly critical. And those friends actually that I made in Toronto when I was coming up through school, I still, all during COVID, I've been hanging out twice a week with all of the alumni of my class, my performance class at York. And these are people that I really love and hold near and dear, and they don't take me too terribly seriously. And I really like that about them.
That's awesome. It really does go a long way. It's important to remain humble, and your friends can play a huge part in doing so, You got to be grateful and appreciative of where you've came from, what you've done, and what you're doing, even so. I like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's even more important, if you're a Canadian that wants to work their way up sort of the entertainment ladder of success sort of thing, and you do want to explore other areas of the business that might be outside of Canada, it's really important to hang on to those friendships because coming home is, in my opinion, is important, and it helps you to stay grounded. Things can get a little nutty in the entertainment business, and there's a lot of fair weather friends that happen along the way, and that's just the nature of the business. You're on set for a few months at a time, and you make very tight, friendships when you're there. But those friendships usually last for the duration of whatever shoot you're on, and then you all move on. And there might be one or two people that you hang on to along the way. But really, at the end of the day, being able to circle back to good friends and family back at home are critical.
Super important for the mental as well. I like how you shared that.
Yeah.
My next question kind of ties into that in terms of like staying in touch with people that help you succeed. That has been a challenge throughout COVID, but I don't want this conversation to go towards COVID. So what is the greatest challenge you currently face outside of remaining connected, outside of COVID right now?
I think it's the ongoing hustle. That's always the greatest challenge. Is I think people don't realize that even when you reach a certain point in your career, there's a constant hustle and churn to get that next great job or position or whatever that is. And you never, ever get to the point where you just reach a stasis, you kind of level off. You might level off for a short period of time, but really for most of the freelancers in this business, I own my own production company. So things are more stable along those lines for me. But really within the context of running a company, you're always hustling for the next job for the company as well. And you've got people that you're responsible for. So there's that as well. And honoring, the work of your clients, always keeping an eye out for the next great thing that will not only fulfill you as an artist, but also provide that paycheck to give you the kind of freedom that is actually not addressed that much for working artists. I didn't realize how critical having the emergency fund, having that slush fund to give you some breathing room, to think creatively, to explore creatively. I didn't understand that concept well enough when I was younger, but I certainly do now. And I encourage everybody that's working their way up to never undercut themselves as best as you can. Don't undercut yourself. Be aware of your value. Always be asking other people how much they charge, and putting a half of it away. Really, it'll give you a lot of freedom and a lot of options. Having that money stash as an artist.
It's really critical. A lot of artists struggle with money management. That's a whole other podcast that we can go into.
Oh yeah.
But that's it's very real. It's very real. And one of the other guests that we have on this season actually said a very similar answer. It's time management, it's energy management. All of that. It's just constant exposure to the race, pretty much.
Yeah. Because you do get to a point too where there's a lot of people sort of vying for your attention for a variety of reasons, and being very clear with yourself in terms of what are your priorities and how's that going to play out on a day by day basis. And that also, like I was a big list maker, still am, but on a day-to-day basis, what helps me a lot is having some quiet time in the wee hours of the morning. I'm an early riser, and just kind of having that moment to take a breath and to center myself and to take a look at the day and then look at the day through the lens of a creative. What are my creative objectives? What am I able to fulfill today? And really kind of prioritizing how that day is potentially going to flow out. And this doesn't include shoot days. Shoot days have a whole other agenda that I'm not always controlling. I've got an AD controlling it. I've got a line producer controlling it and a producer. So that's been well thought out in advance. But these are the days when you are not on a shoot, and when you're not capturing imagery, and when you are back in your office or wherever it is that you are, and you can breathe for a moment. Are you fulfilling the things that are going to make you super happy at the end of your life? Like, what does that look? Is that whole thing of sort of looking back on your life and planning for the end? Really,
Absolutely.
What do you want to see? What do you want to see at the end of your life? What will you have regrets if you don't do now? Because it's all about the now.
It's strategic. It's strategic thinking, and I mean,
very much.
It's not a secret anymore. If you really want to figure this out, just apply that.
Yeah,
it works that way. I like that.
And artists, I don't think artists are terribly good at it. Some are, but you almost you have to be a left and right brain thinker, right?
Yeah.
And that is very tough. I do a lot of mentoring along the way with creatives, young and old, and that's an ongoing theme. This getting lost. Really sort of getting lost in different periods of your career, whether that's financially or creatively. And then how do you get back on track? And that's a really interesting conundrum that I think filmmakers, creatives will hit again and again and again in their career.
All right. So the next that was a plethora of information, by the way, in the basics. I want to say thank you so much for that. A lot of knowledge has been acquired. The next segment is called the speed round. In the speed round, what we're going to do is we're going to throw 20 questions at you, and you're going to answer them with only one word. It's yes, no, both, maybe, the beach, whatever the case may be. Afterwards, you could justify it. Deal?
Deal.
Pow. What is your favorite music genre?
Yacht rock.
Video editors love being part of the creative process.
Yes.
Okay, so to make this a little bit more fun, you have to answer fast.
Oh, sorry. I was like, how do I parse out that answer? I can't answer it in one. Okay. I'll be faster. I guarantee. Well, I can't guarantee it, but I will try.
We'll try.
Yes.
All right. What is your favorite animal/plant?
Dog.
Who is an artist that you currently find the most exciting?
That's a good question. Oh, that's more than one word.
Than one word.
Amy Schumer.
Amy Schumer. She's fun. You've traveled globally shooting inspiring and meaningful stories around the world, yes?
Yes.
What is your favorite time of day?
Sunrise.
At the end of the day, you want a nice big glass of?
Vodka tonic with just a splash of lime.
You were prepared for that question.
Mm-hmm.
Your full-service creative media studio that specializes in producing branded content, commercials, social media storytelling, documentary features, and series is located where?
LA.
LA, Los Angeles. If movie is to watch, then Netflix is to?
Gobble up. Oh, that's 2 words.
I like where your head's going. Do you prefer to read or to watch movies?
Come on now. Both.
Both. Boom. That's a word. It was never the same after that first TLC wedding series.
Yes. Agreed.
I understood the thought process. Where's the next vacation spot?
Oh, God. South Pole.
Whoa. Do you have any nicknames?
Yes.
Okay. The future of video is bleak.
Why?
Would you go to the moon?
Absolutely.
What's your favorite snack?
Blueberries.
You are a development coach.
Yes.
What's your favorite piece of video gear?
Oh, cameras.
Breakfast or dinner?
Breakfast.
And what are the 5 parts to creative career mapping? You could say 5 words.
Oh, I can? I don't know them off by heart.
Ooh, I got you.
Yeah, you did. 5 steps. Just go to my website.
Oh, I got you. Been there, done that. Curiosity, courage, focus, accountability, and productivity.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
That sounds brilliant.
Yeah, whoever came up with that, sheesh. I like it. Okay, so that's the end of the 20 questions. You made it through. No scars. Congratulations.
I don't know. I think I need a Band-Aid on that one. I'm not too sure.
We'll be more delicate next time. Did any of those questions stand out to you, Karen?
Oh, those questions are just a reflection of they are a reflection of a life. That is for sure. um, though I would like to point out one of the most important and influential people in my life is my husband, and he never gets enough cred. He's my best friend, and he's been a really wonderful influence for a woman, myself, working in Hollywood. Couldn't have done it without him.
You need that extra support, hey?
Yeah, everybody does. I'm not kidding. The network that you have coming up in this business, you better lean into it and lean into it hard. The tribe is everything, because it's intolerable doing it, alone, as it were. And it's going to be those people that give you a warm handshake into the next job, and it's going to be those people that you can cry all over when you fall down on the job, because you're going to fail a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that's the other thing that people forget is just how much you're going to fail.
It happens. It happens. It's inevitable. And if you're uncomfortable with that, get out of this business fast or adjust.
It's a necessity. Yeah, but you know what? In any career, this is a necessity if you have ambition and you want to learn.
Growth, yes.
And honestly, that's the only way that your brain is going to develop as well. It's myelin in the brain that basically builds up. It's, Einstein had a tremendous amount of myelin in his brain, and myelin builds up by basically falling down, by failing. It is in the standing back up and doing it again that the myelin keeps building, and you become literally that 10,000 hour genius. That's how it goes. But it takes a certain amount of courage and really humility and that willingness to be embarrassed consistently throughout your career. I am the queen of embarrassment, for sure.
Oh, yeah?
I have perfected that, yes.
Prove it. What's the most embarrassing story that comes to mind right now?
Farting on set in front of all my bosses. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Perfect.
And that was I back in the day when I was a writer, producer, director in reality television, we would have some very, very hot days on set. And if it gets hot enough on a set, I don't know what it is, but human bodies don't always coordinate with what your brain wants them to do. You just get overheated. So thus a
little slip.
The tweeting out one's rear end. Yes, that was a real low point in my career, that one. Yeah.
It brought everyone a good giggle, though, I'm sure. Probably not you.
Yeah. Oh, not me, but for sure everybody else. No, the other things that are embarrassing tend to be, when I was an actor coming up, I had a great reputation for just going completely dry in live performances and just not remembering a line or whatever that was. And my friends would always save me. They'd kind of feed me a line, and they still remember it to this day and are ruthless in reminding me about my very poor memory for line work, which is great. But there's plenty of other things that happen along the way. That, I don't know. It seems like we all come up with some incredibly inventive ways to kind of screw things up, but walking it back, correcting, and apologizing. Apologies are always necessary in this business too, because screwing up is going to happen. Yeah, you move fast. We're all expected usually to do tremendous amounts of work in a very short period of time. And while you're doing that, you're expected to be the best that you possibly can as a creative as well. So, shit's going to go sideways every once in a while.
Yeah. And if it doesn't, I'd be a little concerned. Like, who is this person?
Yeah. Sometimes if it's too perfect, you're like, oh God, I forgot something.
Yeah. Something. Right. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. We made it through the speed round. Thank you so much for participating in that.
My pleasure.
Beautiful. Our next segment is called What's Yo Take?
Okay.
In What's Your Take, we're going to be presenting you with different statements or scenarios, and we simply just want your perspective.
Okay.
Cool. Start with this one. Working on a set is never stressful. What are your thoughts?
If you're not stressed, you're probably not doing your job.
That's probably true. While on set, you get exposed to different stressors. Is there one that sticks out to you more than others?
I was working on a set last year, shooting a series of commercials in New York City during COVID in a hazmat suit with real doctors that were working in hospitals with a crew of 30. And my clients and the agency were in pods in each ear as the cameras were sending out live feeds. And I was directing and I was EPing, not renting, but insuring an entire 25-story building in Lower Manhattan, trying to keep my crew alive and trying to do an awesome job as a director.
Karen,
that was a little stressful.
I was asking for a stressful story. Come on. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Right? That's just silly. Yeah, I know.
A lot of people, the general public would not realize the sacrifices that production teams go through to capture some of the content that they do, you know?
That's
true. Sorry, is someone talking about my job?
Oh, was that a low-key, subtle compliment that I gave you?
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You sound awesome. Awesome.
The production's here. The production team's here. They're here like 2 hours, 3 hours ahead of time. I just roll in 5 minutes before the show. Let's go.
That's how that goes. That's how that goes. The talent rolls in. It's true.
Talent is here. Nah, jokes. Part of the whole process. I like that. Okay, so I'm curious, out of all the interviews you've hosted, is there anyone that like sticks out as well that like, wow, this was truly moving conversation?
You know, it always seems to be the last great project that I worked on. And I was on a series, I was directing on a series called My Last Days for the CW. And my subject to follow, the show, by the way, is coming out this summer. And I don't know if Canadians are familiar with the CW. I don't know if it's called that up in Canada, but at any rate, it follows the lives of people literally in their last days of life. And the show finds really extraordinary people that have come up with a very specific purpose and how they want to spend their days. And this particular young man, Eric Erdman, was 19 years old, and he had brain cancer. And we spent time with him as he pursued his passion for working with kids that had been bullied. And he had started building gyms around the country to help build kids' confidences, because he went through this when he was a little kid. So, and meanwhile, while he's doing all of this stuff and his nonprofit is going on like gangbusters, he's dying. He's dying in front of us. And it was really remarkable to witness that level of courage and tenacity in a human that's only too well aware of the ticking clock. And then my greatest inspiration is probably Bill Strickland. I'm working on a documentary. We started shooting it last year, and it's with an educational activist out of Pittsburgh, and his name is Bill Strickland. He's actually got a TED Talk, so look him up, Bill Strickland. And he has literally helped, as Bill describes it, he has helped create cure to cancer that is poverty. So he created a scholarship-driven technical college and art school in Pittsburgh that has been so wildly successful in terms of turning around Manchester, which has been a very poverty-stricken area in Pittsburgh, and where he is from. He was a ghetto kid growing up in Manchester, and he's completely turned that neighborhood around. And all of his schools now are getting replicated around the U.S. and internationally. So those are my latest ones. Not very well-known people, but
that doesn't matter. Yeah,
they really made an impact on me. Yeah.
These people are almost the rising sea, the rising tide that's lifting, all the other vessels that are in the bay.
Yeah, they are. They really do work to the benefit of all of us humans. And I so appreciate that. And in my career, I've been so blessed to work with very, very famous people that are also doing good work, like the Dalai Lama. But really, it's sort of the unknown folks that quietly toil away that I really love celebrating. And I'm doing that actually on a podcast, which we're probably going to get to, called Give Her a Microphone. but the object of the exercise with my current podcast is to celebrate the women that are toiling quietly and relentlessly behind the scenes in the entertainment business.
They continue to move the needle. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
Beautiful. One more item that I want to discuss about set work.
Yeah.
What do you do when you encounter technical issues on set? And do you have advice for young professionals when encountering similar issues?
Well, it's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. So know your gear. It's sort of a funny trick, but it's nice to know your gear so that you can actually operate it. But really, you need to know your gear because it's going to go down. And being able to troubleshoot creatively is a very particular talent. And you will work forever and a day if you've got a talent for problem solving. The other thing is just be super prepared. I'm a working producer, director, camera op, DP. So I'm DPing on a series right now, and we have these issues all the time, and so I try to think about what are the things that can happen on a shoot. What gear have I got? Or what don't I know right now to troubleshoot that particular problem? I'm on a series right now, a Ryan Murphy series, digital doc series, and we're having issues with Bluetooth, not reception, but really the transmissions, Bluetooth issues with my audio gear, and also with the monitors that are all over the set. It is making the channels on our audio, and I'm not an audio person, so excuse me, grumpy sound guy. I just don't, but it does go down because of these issues every once in a while, and being able to troubleshoot that stuff is extremely helpful. But when it comes to cameras, I almost always am carrying some sort of secondary camera body that I can use with the lenses that I've got on me for that gig. Because I do very remote shooting as well. I'll be in the jungles in Thailand or somewhere in South Africa or in the middle of the Carpathian Mountains, where Vlad the Impaler, AKA Dracula, used to tromp around. And I don't have access to other gear. So just really think through the packages that you've got and what can help you in an emergency if you drop something into a bed of water or whatever.
Yep, it can happen to anyone. There are certain mistakes that most people will make while on set at any point throughout their career. Are there any common mistakes that you see, and how can people avoid them?
Courtesy is a big thing. Right now, there's a movement in Hollywood to really kind of increase the level of courtesy that we dole out to each other, because everyone's under a tremendous amount of strain, from the PAs that are on set up to the producers, directors, et cetera. And so courtesy, I think, is being kind is, I think, the number one thing on a set, and it will serve you over the course of your career, because the PA that is serving you on set, that on something you're directing, probably will be the development person that you're pitching to 5 years down the road. Yep. So kindness is a good thing.
People will remember how you make them feel. Very true.
Yeah.
And then the last question I've got here, when you're preparing your content, what's your take on this? There's no difference between working on a movie, on TV, or on brand videos.
Well, there is a difference, because there's going to be a budget difference. So therefore, there will probably be a gear difference, with the kind of stuff that you're using to shoot with. There will be a difference in the size of teams. So therefore, there will be a difference in terms of speed of delivery too, or the speed of shooting, because you've got a smaller or larger team. That being said, if you've got a really large team, sometimes that slows the whole thing down too. There is a difference. But at the end of the day, what binds them both together is great storytelling. So if you've got a great story on either one of those platforms, those are the ties that bind. And at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters.
That's true. Tell the story in a captivating manner. Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. That wraps up What's Yo Take? We've got our next segment. The next segment is called Community Queries. And what this is we've got fan questions that they sent up a little earlier, and I've got the videos. I'll play them for you. If you can't hear them clearly, I'll repeat them for you.
Here we go.
Hey. All right. So the first guest that we've got, or the first fan that we have, is Mikey Reiber. He is a music marketer and podcaster. This is his question.
If you're an artist starting out with very little connections, what's the best way to start building relationships in the film industry?
Well, networking is everything, but honestly, it's getting out and volunteering. That's a big thing. If you're generous with your time with other people, that filters down in a huge way. I'm generous with my time, and it's been my connections within my professional guilds, within my unions, that sort of thing, that has been incredibly helpful. It's also, joining groups of all sorts, whether you're playing baseball with, an entertainment group, that's very helpful. Have fun. At the end of the day, just have fun with your networking, because everybody wants to work with people that they kind of vibe with. You don't have to be the fun person, but if you're pleasant to be around, you're thoughtful, you are a little funny is helpful. But if you're that person that does make good company, you'll get hired. That's just what happens again and again. So reach out and make a lot of friends. That's my advice.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you for your response, Karen. And thank you, Mikey Reiber. If you want to find him, you can find him on IG at Cypher Podcast. Yeah. The next one up, next fan, we've got Jellyfish. He is an engineer and an artist in artist development. This is his question.
What kind of information takes priority when mapping out a story, and what strategy is used to lay it out?
Wow, that is a loaded question. Okay, so crafting story, everyone's going to have a different mode of operandi. And, if you just jump on YouTube, there are so many people there that want to offer up free advice in terms of how to craft your story. People like Spike Lee, for example. I've worked with Spike Lee on one of his films. And when he's writing a script, he just literally he rocks it old school. He keeps these, what are they? 5x7 cards. And as he starts thinking about the story and outlining it, he will write on these cards, either character development or story beats, and keep them in one of his index boxes. And he'll break it down according to how that script is going to break out, how he thinks it's going to break out. And then when he thinks he's done with what he thinks is the outline, he takes all of those cards and just throws them on the floor and then starts reorganizing them.
Yeah.
And that's how he starts writing a script. And he writes all of his scripts by hand. So everyone's got a different approach. But writing is a rigorous process. And the only way that you're going to get that done, it almost doesn't matter how you get it done. But the key is setting aside every single day, whether that's 10 minutes or 10 hours. You've got to do it every day, because I guarantee your brain will encourage you, no matter what, to get away from your desk and not to write, because it's too scary. It's just too darn scary. So you just got to keep in mind that the first pass is going to be shit. The first pass of anything that you write is going to be so bad, so cringeworthy, you'll never want to return to your desk. However, it is in the edit that the magic happens, and rearranging the parts and figuring out what's actually working, what's resonating with your voice. So have the courage to sit, or whatever you got to do, but write every day. Carve out that half hour, really hour every day, and just write.
Yep. It goes a long way. It really does. Thank you for that response. Thank you, Jellyfish. Once again, if you want to find him on Instagram, that's at Jellyfish Studio with an I. Our last question is from Mr. Bradley Spencer, and he is a photographer. He does illustration. He also does design.
How can you tell someone's story or a story in the most effective way by using emotions? And what does that look like?
That's sort of another trick question, because I work as a filmmaker and as a photographer. I've been shooting, I've been capturing stills for years. I was a rock and roll photographer for years, not only at the clubs around here in Los Angeles, but I was a Grammy photographer. And then most recently, I did a Netflix series where we were shooting with just some of the best bands in the world. It was really lovely. It was sort of a throwback series. So it was Moby, who is great, a wonderful taciturn soul, a real poet. And, when it comes to those frames, when it comes to still photography, serendipity is your friend. You've got to wait and feel what that person is feeling. Empathy is going to be your friend in any kind of filmmaking pursuit. And empathy is what's going to cause you to press the shutter. Just make sure that your framing is kind of groovy, ideally, and just wait for the moment, because that person at some point is going to relax enough. And your job is also, whether you're a director or a photographer, is to create an environment where people can emotionally relax and be themselves and really kind of deliver on the promise that is the best in their soul. And your job then is just to capture that moment. But creating that environment is a gift. It really is. And learning how to do that, working with human psychology and that sort of calm, assertive dog whisperer thing really does help. When people feel safe in your environment that you've created for them, it makes a big difference, and you'll get to the storytelling, the emotional storytelling within frame much, much faster when everyone's just kind of relaxed but strong, having that strength to lend whoever is in front of camera, because it is a little scary being in front of a camera. I think we've all been in front of a camera at this point. I don't much like it, ironically. Even coming out of performance, I loved being a performer when I was, but now it's just, oh my goodness, it's so scary. So I really do try to make my environments fun and safe and comforting so people can just relax.
It goes a long way. It really does go a long way. They need to have a sense of calmness to them, and that almost adds to their preparedness. It's like, all right, we're calm, we can execute to our best ability. Even warriors will have to do that. They train their mental, be calm so that they can execute. Yeah. It's the art of this. I mean, if you want to perform at this level, execute at this level. Do what you got to do.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm very cognizant of that. Stepping onto a set as a director, whatever I'm feeling on set that day is going to inexorably trickle down to everybody else on that set. So I really sort of, do a shout out, a prayer or a meditation before I go onto a set, to center down and offer that strength up and to offer that calmness up. And really, it's about love, y'all. It really is offering up a recognition of that person's excellence and that person's special gift. If you can recognize what a person's special gift is and recognize what makes them inherently unique, they'll relax. They'll know that you recognize who they are. And that helps and goes a long way. And their emotional life will just flower right in front of you. It's such a gift.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. We've got one question from the back. I will read it out. This is still part of the community queries. Are there any examples of cool styles of famous creative professionals?
Beatles, John. I saw, not that I've never met the man, but I saw in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I saw this beautiful display that they did of his songwriting process. And John's songwriting process is probably fairly common to any working musicians that are on the road, because you have long periods of time when you're on the bus or on the plane or you're traveling, or in the laundromat, cleaning your drawers. You just never know. You have those periods of time where you're not performing, which is the bulk of your day. And during that time, your brain, your heart can wander. And looking at John's notes, he had written down his lyrics on anything he could get his hands on. I don't know why the man didn't keep a notebook. I'm really kind of surprised about all of this, but it was on napkins. You literally could follow the path of his tours with the lyrics that were written on napkins, on hotel stationery, on friends stationery, on anything, newspapers. It was all over the place. But it made for such a charming, deeply insightful road to follow on his creative, literally on his creative path as he was touring. So that's another way, that was another sort of artist's journey that I've been really inspired by. I don't want to do it myself, by the way, but I really loved that he did it.
There's a deeper appreciation to get to see someone do that and actually carry it through to fruition.
Yeah, my husband he was a label artist for many years. and toured a lot. I would go out on tour with him every once in a while, go down the rabbit hole with him every once in a while. And, you know, when they were writing, they'd be on the bus and they would be riffing and being inspired by the different places that they were in and writing about the people that they met along the way. And I was really always inspired by their concentration, by their way of focusing. I experienced this, and I think filmmakers experience this when you have to sort of dance in the eye of the storm when you're on set, when you're directing, or when you're performing. You are surrounded by a swirl of activity and energy, and being in the heart of that storm, it's quiet and contemplative. But finding the eye, getting out of the storm and finding the eye is a trick. And that tends to be a lifelong process for most artists and most artists kind of avoid it because it's sort of like you're looking for it, but for whatever reason, your brain is like, yeah, I get, does this mean I have to sit still? Not necessarily, but getting that feeling, whole body feeling of calmness and focus, no matter what's surrounding you, will always serve you as an artist if you can manifest that point of being again and again and again on a daily basis.
So essentially what I'm hearing here is you have to have control and maintain control. And one way that I really find would help do this is through meditation.
Yeah.
Is this something that you're familiar with, something that you practice?
Very, very much so. But, you know, it's almost like you're looking for control through the lack of control, right?
Through
it's
the chaos,
that Zen
yes, of
thing.
course.
Yeah, it's that. Because if you can let go and let God, as they say. And I'm not a religious person, but if you can let go and let the muse in, which is an Elizabeth Gilbert thing, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. If you can let the muse in, welcome him or her to the door and crack the door open and let them come in for a while and sit. Let them whisper in your ear. It's really about you creating that space to let the muse in so you can actually hear them and what they would like to impart to you. That's a philosophy too.
It's a magnificent process. You have to just accept. Sometimes you might not be happy with what the muse has to say, but that's part of the process as well.
It's your job to kind of weed through the musings, as it were, to the core of the story. But, you know, we all struggle with it, honestly, whether they're professional writers or not. All of us struggle with finding that moment of serenity, as it were, or focus to allow the muse to do their job so that you can write it down. And it's a big deal. Most of us avoid it. So don't avoid it.
Composers, writers out there, you're not alone. We're going through this struggle together.
We're all going through the same thing. Yeah.
Beautiful. Fantastic. That is Community Queries. What we're going to be doing next is we're going to be hitting our final segment of the show. The segment is called Clear the Air. Wow. I definitely thought we were going to change up that transition music, Grumpy, but maybe you'll keep up next time.
What would you like me to play, man?
You know what? I'm over it. We could just move on. That's awesome. Alrighty, Karen. So in this segment, I'm going to be bringing, in this segment, I'd like you to bring clarity to these more dense questions. We only have a couple here. We'll be wrapping up relatively soon. Cool?
Cool.
What is the main difference between working with a small production group versus a large one? You mentioned budget at first, but outside of that, what are main differences?
You know, I can only speak from a producing directing standpoint. There are just more bodies. So there's more you have to have a lot of trust in the people around you when you have a large team to navigate with. And so you really have to trust your heads of departments. Whereas with a smaller team, you might be the head of all departments. You might be it. And you know, last year was a good example, really, to me. I was working with crews of all sizes because of COVID. You know, we're trying to keep the numbers down, but were plenty of examples where I was working with teams last year that ranged from 5 to 150. So it was just sort of like, you know, you just have to have a great deal of trust for the folks that you're working with a bigger team, knowing that they can do what they have signed on to do. Smaller teams, you can wrangle a little bit more and control a little bit more along those lines.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest difference.
Interesting. What about the culture? Do you see any differences across culture, or is that just team specific?
Well, culture, humans, whether it's a large or small team, culture will often be predicated by leadership, if not always. So I find that, if you've got somebody that's grumpy and taciturn, leading the team, whether it's large or small, that's kind of how the vibe's going to play itself out over time. And the same thing goes for calm assertive leadership, where there's clearly a lot of love for the team. That doesn't mean you're not going to have bumps along the way, but it does make your life on set easier by having that kind of leadership. And that's the kind of leadership I like. That's not always the kind of leadership that other people like. They like there to be some topsy-turvy turmoil going on, because that's how they get their creative juices going. Me, not so much. I really prefer that we have a relatively calm, well-oiled machine on a set, because it allows me as a director to really put my full focus on the creative instead of being distracted by anything else. So that's how I like to roll it out. And typically that is how my sets roll out.
Yeah. Nice. That's more my speed too. I mean, I do appreciate the chaos from time to time, but I need a little bit of time to step off from that. The organization goes a long way.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of other time in a creative life for chaos. That's always what you're sort of fighting against for me, is the chaos, because that makes everything go sideways if it goes on for too long.
Yeah.
But yeah, the calm is a good thing for me personally.
Yeah, same. Clear the air on this. Creative people. How do you get the most out of them while working with them? You said that as a director, you've got to create the environment. Do you say things to people? How do you go about doing this?
I think it gets back to empathy again. It's really being able to read people pretty quickly, pretty effectively. And, if you're going to be hiring and bringing in your department leads, if you don't already have relationships with them, you'll form one pretty quickly, so that you know what your tastes are. You'll know how the other person operates. And, empathy goes a long way. That doesn't mean that I'm serving the needs of the crew. The crew's serving the needs of the story, as am I. And I try to make that really clear to anybody that's working on my set, is that they're not there to serve me. We're all there to serve the story. And having that team effort of serving a great story really helps to bring human beings together. And the ones that aren't really there to do that, they become apparent pretty quickly.
Yeah, or you cut
and
them.
I've become very adept at firing people, as it turns out. So I'm always the one. For the entirety of my career, I've always been the person sent in to fire people, because I'm very philosophical about it. There's a right fit for everybody, and this just might not be the right fit for that particular person.
Yeah.
So they've got to let go and go on to the right fit.
I always congratulate people whether they get fired or they quit. I mean, this is a new opportunity. Just seize it. I mean, whatever.
Is that why you
it could be poor,
congratulated
but
me at the beginning of the episode? Are you going to fire me?
because we're firing you. We weren't supposed to talk about this live, but I mean, we can. Karen, do you mind cutting him?
No, good Lord. We all of us will get fired at some point from a job, because we're creative people and it might not be the right fit. I have been fired several times, whether I was actually aware of being fired. Sometimes it's called other things, but at the end of the day, if you're not doing the job and you're not getting paid suddenly, it's really, you've been fired.
Yeah.
So, and that's always a hard thing to take, but I think you have to be very philosophical about it and just hold the faith that if you have creative vision, if you have a strong sense, a strong point of view, that point of view will find you as you go to seek it out. Mm-hmm. And there might be some bumps. Well, guaranteed there's going to be bumps along the way. Just don't take it personally.
Absolutely. Without the failure, you're not really moving forward. So that's
yeah, that's what they say. I really wish it wasn't like that, but it kind of is, because you learn so much more in the failure.
Absolutely. Our last group of questions, we want to dive into the podcast that you briefly mentioned. Give her a microphone. And you also did mention that this podcast celebrates women in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
We also mentioned in the speed round that your life changed 15 years ago after that first TLC wedding show. So how did the two relate?
I realized doing reality television that I didn't want to sleep under my desk anymore in the pursuit of telling somebody else's stories. And when I say somebody else's, I didn't own them. You know, it wasn't my show. I was so happy to be part of that crew and part of that show. And I learned so much along the way. And it was, in fact, on that show that I met my co-producer and co-host, Shirley Jackson. She was line producing and I was story producing. And all these years later, we are now producing a podcast together. So that's one of the things that changed. But I made a concerted effort. After that last show, I'd been producing a lot of reality programming that I realized that just wasn't how I wanted to spend my life. I felt it was too destructive culturally. And so I ended up jumping, you know, feet first into documentary filmmaking and into photography. And that completely changed things for me. I ended up becoming, you know, a Grammy photographer and doing a lot of really fun things along the way. And I opened my own business and jumped into that. And there were so many more opportunities for me once I committed. And I think for all of these women, we try to speak with women. We speak with women that are working on every level of the entertainment business, whether that's here in the United States or in other countries. And women are not very good at tooting their own horns. So I'm here to do that for them when they're not going to do it otherwise. I think it's a really important thing.
I'm here to listen.
Yeah, it's, you know, women and folks of color right now, we're being given and taking more opportunities than ever we've had before. That being said, the numbers are still extremely low in terms of women being employed in Hollywood. I think 11% of all the directing jobs right now in film and television are going to women, which is about par for what it has been the last few years. Same thing for writers, producers. It's a little bit higher, but not by much. And if you're a woman of color, goodness knows it's even tougher. So it's kind of a funny time right now because all of us that have production companies are actively and have been for quite a while actively looking for women and folks of color to to take the lead in all of our different positions within our shoots and that sort of thing. You know, there's such a direct connection between creating opportunity, diving into opportunity, and excelling to get to that point where you are award winning and you have an amazing portfolio. That can only be facilitated. An amazing career can only be facilitated through opportunity. So all of us have to support all the rest of us in doing that.
Support. What a fantastic way to draw a conclusion on that. Without the support at any point in time, I mean, you started off with mentorship. You said that you've got support from your family. You shouted out your husband. You're shouting out your team. Like every single player throughout this process is very integral. If they're not necessary, they definitely wouldn't be there. So without the support, really, we can't do any of this.
Well, you can't thrive and grow. I mean, at the end of the day, I can't run a production company without the support of all of the amazing creatives that I've continued to shoot with and tell stories with. And I couldn't have done this without the support of my family. You know, in the hard times, you lean into that love because somebody's got to tell you that they love you at the end of the day, no matter what you've done. And honestly, it's your friends are going to be, my friends, honestly, have been some of the greatest networkers I could ever hope for. They're the ones that'll call up and go, yeah, I've got this friend and they're making this movie and I think they're looking for directors. And hey, can I throw your hat in the ring? And I'm like, yes, please do.
There it is.
It's always like that. So fostering great relationships is really about having some fun, y'all. Just go out there, and this is a hard business. So try to have as much fun as you can along the way. Shooting is so much fun. But the friends and your network are another really great outlet for having some fun and blowing off some steam along the way.
I have to agree so much. Thank you so much, Karen, for that. We're at the very end. Are those your final words, or do you have any quick final words that you would like to share or part us with?
My final words, I am a woman with a lot of words, but I just want to remind everybody that it is about love, y'all. It sounds really cliched, but if you love what you do and you love the people that are around you, helping you to do that, you're going to love your life.
Yeah.
So just keep moving forward in that direction.
It's worth it. I like that so much. Can our listeners find you or your programs anywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to my company portfolio at KarenSummers.com, and Summers is SOMERS, KarenSummers.com. My photography is on a separate website at KarenSummersPhoto.com. And if you'd like a little coaching, by all means, reach out. And I'm always happy to lend some support. And that's at Karen Summers Coaching. Last but not least, the podcast. This is about diversification, clearly,
Yes.
and just offering up your gifts, right? So the podcast is at giveheramicrophone.com. Please come and visit, sign up. And if you think you're a good candidate, if you're a woman working and thriving in the business, please throw your hat in the ring. I want to hear from you and interview you.
Yes, I love it. I will add all of those links to our show notes as well. Thank you so much, Karen. We out. This episode is brought to you by thecharts.com. If you're a producer or beat maker looking to build your beat commerce business in less time, thecharts.com can help. Remember that you can sign up for free and start selling your beats and instrumentals today at thecharts.com. Big shout out to all parties involved. You can find more value at our website at goproduce.ca. Connect with me on Instagram at go.produce. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're on Apple or Spotify, make sure to hit download. This will really help us grow our community. I'm Big Lou, and this is Go Produce.